What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Not only an episode, but a brand new season of the Best You Nation, hosted by myself, Finn Foster, and Adler T. So, first of all, guys, welcome. We hope every one of you guys is doing well. It is a brand new week, brand new opportunity to be the best version of yourself. But before we get started, let's check in with Adler. How are you doing, bro?
Man, I'm doing okay, man. Hanging in there. How about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, my friend. I've been working a lot these last few weeks, just kind of picking up a couple extra shifts to put towards the trip at the end of the year to New York. But besides that, man, I'm doing great. I have a lot of energy, and I'm excited about this season because we're going to be diving into some topics that really focus on experience and the life that we each have to live. I've been doing good, man. I think things are peachy. That's the best way. Things are great. Cassandra and I are great.
What's let me ask you this. What's one thing that went really, really well for you last week? Or this past 7 days?
The past 7 days, I would say, all right, I'll be honest. My studying habits. I had a conversation with Cassandra. She said that you need to find a better way to approach your study, on top of what you and I had talked about off air. And it was an adjustment that I had to make very quickly because I don't have the best studying skills, but I was able to find a new way to study. So I would say that has been, in the last 7 days, my most optimal growth. And I'm doing pretty good. I did pretty well on my practice quizzes, and I feel more ready than I was just a few weeks ago.
That's awesome. I like that for you, man. Congratulations. Way to go. Way to get down a better habit so that way you can put yourself in the best position possible for success.
That's right.
Yeah.
What about yourself, man?
For me, I say technically it's the last 7 days, but it's been the last 14 days, if I'm being realistic. I went to back-to-back weddings. So there's just something about weddings and love and the air and all that good stuff that just makes you feel good. You walk away or you come back home man, one day I'm gonna find my person, you just feel really good about it. So congratulations to Sheila and Noe. They got married 2 weeks ago, and then congratulations to Langham's Dr. Mrs. Langhams. I want to say Langham. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but still, congratulations. It was cool. I got a chance to fly out to Pittsburgh. I spent 3 days out there. Got a chance to kind of tour the town a little bit. And I learned so I learned a little bit about Pittsburgh tradition. Apparently, at the wedding, I'm at this wedding in Pittsburgh, and I'm looking at this table and it's just full of just desserts. And I'm just that's weird. I've never seen, usually it's a dessert table that is catered and people walking around and they're, delivering stuff. But it was apparently in that region of the United States, they do something called a cookie table. Each person makes their homemade batch of cookies, and they bring their own cookies and they put it on this table, and everybody takes turns just trying whatever cookie you want. And so I will be honest, I'll be quite honest, I came back a little bit heavier than I anticipated because I partook on this this cookie table. Those cookie tables, it was cake. I indulged, and it is what it is, but I enjoyed myself. So that was really, really cool to kind of experience that type of tradition. And then they did something else called a money dance. It's a money dance. So everybody lines up to see the bride. And as you get closer, there's an apron or a hat or just something that she's holding. But there's an apron that you take $1 or however much you want to put, and you drop it in the apron, and it's supposed to be like it's like a Polish good luck thing, and like it helps them, like the couple have a little bit of like spare change on the like the first day of being married.
There you go. That's a good way of doing it. It's a
Yeah,
different.
never experienced that before in my life, so I was just like, okay, when in Rome, participate. And I was like, here's here's $5. So yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was fun for me. So that went really well. What's one key thing that you've identified in the last like 7 days or so that you're just like, all right, I can be a little bit better. I can use a little bit of improvement.
Aha. Well, I'm gonna be honest. Working 5 days in a row and then doing it again this week. I think for me, it's finding a little bit more work-life balance. I understand, like I know, like it's important to take time, which I feel like I do, but it's also really important that you eat at the appropriate times.
Yes,
Um,
correct.
I think that in healthcare, there's never a guarantee that you get to go at 12:30 or 1:30 for lunch break. I think at one point, one day or 2 days last week, I went at like 4:30 lunch break, which getting off at 7 o'clock. That's really just a few hours away from being off the clock.
Mhm.
But that's something that that was kind of I was like, oh man, I could do better about this. And it's just because it changes your attitude at work because people get hangry. That's a legitimate thing. And I just feel
When
like
you're
sometimes
hungry, you get a
I
little
don't.
fussy.
Yeah, well, no, and that's kind of on top of that, you're exhausted, you're tired, you've worked 4 or 5 days, and now you're on top of that, you're burning the steam. So that is kind of where I need I'm revisiting an event that took place this past week that I just in the moment I was like I knew that I was hangry. Like I knew that I needed to go eat.
You're in that emotional space.
Oh
So
yeah. So and I came back and I was like, wow, I feel like a flower that went from wilted and kind of came back up and is blooming now. It's
I'm
amazing.
alive. And you're like ripping us like, oh.
Yeah, no, but it's amazing what food can do for you after being hangry. It changes your whole outlook, your experience at work, and just even the day. Like I just
Yes.
so that would be the work on this one thing I could identify that needs some work. So I'm trying to think. Oh, before we get going, I wanted to just share also a couple things real quick and part of the housekeeping before we get rolling. Two things. Number one, if anybody's out there, and Adler, we got coffee, right? We've been having some coffee out there. You got your bag, I got my bag, I got both bags, demonstrations. So really, really good. I've got a lot of great feedback from people from work. I've been able to give them a bag to try. People have been really loving our bourbon barreled rusted bean, and I've been getting a lot of good stuff about both of these bags. So I'm really excited to hear the good feedback from people that it's strong, the bowl is good, it tastes great. With French vanilla creamer, I've been getting a lot of great feedback. So with that being said,
if you guys get a chance, check out the website. Check out some coffee. I do know a buddy of mine just hit me up the other day, and he hadn't realized that we started doing coffee. So I know he just bought I think he just bought like maybe 2 bags actually.
there you
So
go.
yeah, it was, that's just something to touch upon. And I think you're gonna share something about the book, right?
Yeah, so another really crazy thing that's been kind of going on. I realized, I think last weekend, I realized that it's been a year since I published my book, and I know it's a little bit like it's been a year, but I wanted to just bring this back and just talk about like I've had 4 or 5 people buy this book this past like week, and it's encouraging. It's like inspiring to see that people are still looking to they're just finding out about it, and I'll be honest, like I'm excited about. We have a project ourselves in the near future we can start working on. But this book has been kind of spreading across some of the platforms like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, to just mention. But a few people at work have told me, man, I've been reading your book, and truthfully, the whole family's gonna read this. This is like really, really awesome that you wrote a book. One of the nurses was like, wow, you wrote a book. My daughter loves reading books. And she had, she brought it in, she had me sign it and write a little note. And she was just like, she adopted her own son as well, one of her first son. And she was just like, this is inspiring. Didn't even realize you did this. So I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who supported it, pushed me to publish the book, but also I'm would love for people to continue to share the word and let people know. I had my first international purchase in Canada. That happened the other day. Someone in Canada bought my book, and I was just I was really happy to see that somebody outside of the nation was able to get a hold of it. But with that being said, we're talking about experience, we're talking about life, we're talking about everything here and kind of what we're going through. And I think this is a really good segue moment to kind of pivot to, and by the way, as we finish Friends, I was really sad about that. I was really sad that we finished Friends. It was such a great way to end. And we watched
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it for there's some certain people that never finished it.
But it was the whole season, all 10 seasons were phenomenal. And then we watched the reunion, and that made me cry. That was really that touched me right here.
Why?
Dude, it's just because I would never think I was gonna watch Friends, and then watching 10 seasons of Friends and just looking forward to sitting down with Cassandra in the evening and just kind of winding down and watching Friends. It was just like a homey feeling, just chilling and relaxing. And then you watch them 17 years later or 20 years later, whatever, they're sitting in the same room for the first time since the last episode of the 10th season. And they're just in shock and awe of everything. They're all on the original set. They're in the original places. They're just, it's just such a nostalgic feeling. And I don't know, I cried just watching that because, you become submerged in what you watch. Yeah, so I was very emotional. It was just I was like, oh my God, Ross, man, oh my God, Rachel. You just see them and they're talking. It was great. It was a great little way to kind of end the entire thing. But it just kind of comes back to this life, everything we're doing here and experiencing what we're talking about here on the podcast. We've been really focused on real life stuff. And I want to continue on that trend. And to continue on that trend, that it also includes going in on conversations about our personal experiences in life. And our personal experiences, I think, give us the clarity from person to person. And it's kind of what we talked about last week, with it creates this commonality between one person, another person, one group or another group. And you can identify a way to really understand or engage with people. So I think today I'm going to start off by asking, in your life, have you ever experienced a destination that you had in mind, a place that you were going that you actually never got to because now you're on a different way and you've actually reached the destination, or you're almost at a destination that you never saw yourself being on? So I'll let you take that, because I feel like this is a great way to open this up, give people an opportunity who's listening to this to also think about this. But for you, Adler, is there a time in your life or a place in your life that you've experienced this, I have a destination in mind, but you're actually at a different destination now, a better destination, a place that is more destined for you?
So to those of you that don't know, when I was 18, all I ever talked about was getting into the medical field. But at the time, I wanted to become a physical therapist. And physical therapy was the one field that I had shadowed, and I did volunteer hours all throughout my senior year with one of my mom's, it was her husband, or it's her friend's husband. Yeah. And he would allow me to, drive up, help out at the rehab center. And I would just do different things, between picking up, cleaning up the areas, and just kind of just doing just small things, but just to kind of keep me associated with everything. He let me watch his assessment, his process, and everything. And it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to become a physical therapist. I even went to something called it's a youth leadership program that was at the University of Florida. And it's a 3-day event where you get people just to sit down, talk to counselors and, over at the University of Florida. And I sat there and they said, we believe in the power of speaking things into existence. So you sit there and you write out what your 10-year plan is, and you close it, and you don't open it until you reach that 10-year mark.
Right.
So 18-year-old me sat down. I wrote down a handful of things. I won't go into crazy amount of detail. on all of it. But I do know that I said by 25 I'd be married, by 27 I'd have kids, and I would be a licensed physical therapist with my doctorate degree, graduating from the University of Florida. So I won't go into all the other details, but none of that happened at all, like not in the least bit. By the time I was ready to like start my main program, I ended up switching to the University of North Florida. I went to the University of North Florida, where this was my first real, a, like real attempt at just having independence. Like I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want to go. I don't have to ask permission. I pay my own rent. I'm doing my own thing. And I made a lot of terrible, poor decisions, such as like not attending class. Like not attending class will definitely force you to get into a situation where you're going to be, you know, flunking out or just really bad. Like I lacked discipline. I didn't like it's so funny just to think about like that person that I was then and the person that I've turned out now. Like to me at least, it's like complete 180. Like it's not the same person at all. And I I remember having a conversation with my mom. She was like, hey, once you come back home, get to nursing. After you finish doing nursing, then you can go on and just do whatever it is that you want. So I went to nursing, and now I'm here in nursing. I'm 31 on the cusp of being 32. I'm not married. I do not have kids. I am a bachelor level nurse, and I do have plans on going back for my master's at some point. But in the meanwhile, I'm trying to focus on, you know, building a podcast, building myself like as an entrepreneur, uh, because the deal was go to nursing school and then after that do whatever you want. And this is the whatever I want portion. So I always remind my mom and dad that whenever they're like, you should go for your master's. I'm like, yeah, but this is the, you remember we had a verbal agreement. I remember this is the whatever I want. So I have up until 2026 to really just kind of, you know, really hone in on like this entrepreneurial stuff. And if by 2026 I haven't hit the level that I wrote down, I wrote a letter to myself. This year is a 5-year letter. If I don't hit that mark, then I'm going to probably reassess and then try to make adjustments accordingly. But I can tell you this much, I'm at least a little bit closer to accomplishing things on this list versus the one I made at 18. So
There you go. Yeah, it's weird to actually think that 6 years ago is where I was when I was 18 years old, and just to kind of uh, have a continuum of where we were, you know, where we were on our journey at 18. So I didn't actually attend any kind of program or anything like you did going to UF or college was not necessarily on my mind. Actually, let me take that back. I only had one university on my mind, and I had this university on my mind actually at 16 years old, when I was getting very close to finishing up high school. And I remember all my life, if anybody really knows me, they should know. And if you don't know me, this would
you're in
be
ROTC.
I was in ROTC for a little while in my ninth grade year.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I felt like I felt I might be mixing up with another person, but I thought it was you who was in ROTC for like high school also at that time.
No, just for a small portion. I went from being in public school to being actually doing homeschool, doing online virtual school because I just wanted to be able to go at my own pace and self teach and get into whatever it is I wanted to do sooner than 18. So what ended up happening was at 16 years old, I started doing research on what it is that I wanted to do for educational purposes that's going to line up with my dream job that I had at the time. Now, I think there's another avenue that I will take later on after I finish becoming a nurse. It's going to still go back and get my private's license to be a pilot, to have like a private license to be able to fly and even teach. But it was the dream for me was to become a commercial airline pilot, to fly for Delta Airlines and to become a first officer. By the time I was 25 or even younger, actually, I think I was either 22 or 24 or 25. And I'm right in that zone now. To look back at 6, 7 years ago, it's like, wow, it's definitely a different, I'm on a different path. I have a different destination. And I'll get into that here in a second. But it's funny that you say, like, 18 years old, I remember I was gung ho about flying for Delta. I still fly Delta normally for flights to wherever we go.
JetBlue's
And
better.
actually, I even have a debit card now that gets me Delta Sky Miles every time I go spend. It's something about wanting to fly as a child. Like, I knew I wanted to be, I wanted to fly an airplane. I love traveling. Being in that military family, you're able to travel to different parts of the world. And I could tell you everything from the fuselage of the aircraft to how wings work and how an aircraft can actually fly. And, when we're on an airplane now, I always say, all right, here we go. The throttle's going up. The wings are coming out about 15 to 30 degrees. Basically, the flaps come out to allow for a lift. And the fuselage is just the body of the aircraft. But the point is I was on my way with my goals to go to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University to go pursue a bachelor's degree in
Daytona
aeronautics.
Beach,
What's that?
over in Daytona Beach.
Yes, in Daytona Beach. So
Yeah.
I had this goal that I was going to go to, and I actually went for a tour at the school. I got to see the simulation room where it had 4 different simulations that the piloting students would use to become to get hours, because I think you have to have like 500 flight hours simulated. And then
Yeah.
they were telling me that I was going to have my own Cessna. Then you start thinking about how much it costs to become a pilot. It's insane, especially at one of the most elite and pristine universities in the nation and actually around the world. $25,000 per year, physical school year, to have an aircraft for maintenance, insurance, for fuel, you name it. And it wasn't that I wasn't deterred by that, but I was like, I want to become a pilot. Like, that's what I wanted to do. Now, fast forwarding where I am today, I actually ended up in the military, which I won't go into too much detail about that, but I went into the military, the Air Force specifically, and got home on a discharge, honorable discharge, that pretty much made me to think and reevaluate. So I had a very, 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 very quick turnaround to figure out what I need to do next. So I didn't have 5 years to reevaluate. I had about 5 or 6 months to reevaluate where I needed to go, what was next, and how was I going to continue whatever it is I wanted to do. So I worked at Dillard's for a little while, worked in the shoe department, sold shoes, and realized that I wanted to get back into an area where I would be purposefully serving. And I got into transport, working at the hospital. So that's where now I took some steps back and realizing this is where you have a growth moment. I realized that I am now, it wasn't that I wasn't interested in flying, because I still love flying. I still would love to go and get my pilot's license today. But it was a realization that that was a dream that I had that didn't necessarily line up with everything that I was going to want for my future. And I've had this conversation with Cassandra. I want to be present at home. 80 hours a month being gone on the, well, not necessarily on the road, I guess in the air, if you want to be punny about it, because you're not really on the road, you're more up in the clouds. But living out of your suitcase and not being present, I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to be a husband someday. I want to be a father someday. These are things that men have, and we have goals to be the role models in the household. But I told myself that being a pilot is not ideal for the family life. If that's what I want, I have to prioritize what's going to be most ideal. I thought like this at 18, 19 years old. So now looking forward, the potential of applying for nursing school within the next 7 to 12 days is pretty insane. And to think that that is going to be where I'm headed, to know that once I wanted to be a pilot, but now I'm going in a direction to take care of people in the community. That's that change in direction. The destination is already set, technically. We have plans, God has better plans. And so God already destined my destination. It's just, we like to go down one road, one path as humans. We have it in our mind, but then you get redirected. So
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I know you had mentioned that you did Dillard's and you worked as a transporter. Did you have any other odd jobs like before what you're doing now?
Not really officially. I worked on a house in Mount Dora. Like I was I guess a handyman kind of stuff. Like we did plumbing, reconstructed a wall, did baseboards, and then did trim along the ceiling. Re-sanded a entire like old. It was like a whole like summer job thing. It wasn't like an official like, hey. I applied though for several jobs. I mean, I remember when I was getting ready to go into the Air Force, I needed to work. So I applied to Macy's, I applied to Dillard's, I applied for Starbucks, I applied at Publix, Chick-fil-A. I applied everywhere you possibly could think of. And the only place I took was Dillard's. But I didn't have any wacky jobs. So that's like the only, I think I got.
I applied, and honestly, from like, it must have been 18 to maybe 23. I applied to Publix 5 times. Not once did I even get an interview.
Yeah, I went to I don't know if they do it now, but they used to have a kiosk in the store, and all this information, and you're standing there
for an hour. Yeah,
yeah,
like it was like forever.
Remember that was the way that you would do it. Now you can go online and do it from your phone. But like, yeah, I remember going into the kiosk. This is probably the weirdest part about this. Okay. So not only did I just show up to the kiosk, but I showed up in a suit to the kiosk because I wanted a manager or somebody. I thought in my mind, if I'm here looking a little bit different than everybody else, they're going to see that this guy actually cares. So I actually made an effort to dress up well, go at the kiosk for an hour, stand there, fill out all this information, which by the way is, I remember the machine froze in the middle of the application at one time and I had to do it all over again from the start.
Yep.
Then I made an effort to go talk to the manager and introduce myself. And guess what? Denied. I was like, listen here. 4 times is enough. I'm done. I'm going to go find somewhere else to work.
I still shop. Huh?
I worked at T-Mobile for like a day and it was stupid. I got hired. I got trained for 2.5 weeks at the Uber to Claremont because that was where the training location was. Spent $2,000 in Uber for 2 weeks, expensive as hell. And then on top of that, got to the job for the first time. They're like, we hired too many people. We have to let you go.
Yikes.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Training for 2 weeks, finally figure it out, get your badge, your shirt, and all that jazz. They spelled my name wrong.
You could have been like a T-Mobile guy.
I could have been a T-Mobile guy. My goal then was to work for Apple, actually. That was what I wanted to do at 18.
You know what's like crazy? It's like I still shop at Publix still, but honestly, it's their loss because I'm an amazing worker. I'm very personable. And thinking like just wacky jobs that you did, like, because again, at least I remember thinking to myself, all right, physical therapy. Other jobs I've had, I've been pretty much a dishwasher at the student cafeteria. I've worked in patient transport as a young lad, like around your age. I've worked in some construction stuff, like doing like the loops at the lights with Audrey. I did that for a few years. I did landscaping stuff for a little bit, like as a second job where I would like help break down trees, break it down into like little sawdust and stuff like that. Like I did that. I was working with Cutco at one point. I don't know if you know Cutco. Do you know Cutco? All right. So I was basically a door-to-door knives salesman. So I would walk over to a kid and I would cut a penny with like these shears and then use the knife to like slice through like these really tough leathers. And I would walk around and say, hey, da 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 da. And I would dress up in not like a suit, but I would dress up with like button-down shirt, really nice pair of pants, really nice pair of shoes, and I'd go from place to place to place to place to place. I knew that.
I had a similar job, but mine was you're gonna laugh. It was more cosmetic related. And I remember at 18, before I was 18, I was brought into like the pyramid scheme things, man. You get into them, and they're like, oh, we're gonna promise you can, if you get this person or this person signed up this month, we'll get you a free car. It's like, oh, okay, that sounds really good. And I do remember I was trying to get people to join my team through Facebook. This is when I first opened up a Facebook account. I never knew how to really use it.
Or like Sephora or something, or what? Like,
No, it was called Miriam at the beginning. Like it was called Miriam, and it is a five. It's a five. A what is it? The five Forbes 500 business, whatever. I mean, the guy is a successful guy, but the thing is, like the business model was very intriguing. And I remember I was like, oh, I could do this. All I gotta do is go around and put on some cream on my eyes and look really good, or whatever, and freaking sell this crap, and I'll be driving in an Lexus. Because I do remember like we had a meeting at a Lexus dealership, and one of their incentives is if you can get so many people in a time frame, they'll give you a free Lexus of your choice. And I remember sitting in one of those nice like crimson red leather seats inside of it was like a is it a X XL or XE 300 or F. It was one of those fancy schmancy sports Lexuses, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can see myself driving one of those. And it just kind of like that was probably the weirdest job because I was getting frustrated. No one wanted to be a part of my team. It wasn't that I don't think it was me. I just think that nobody was interested in buying or getting into something that is, aging is going to happen. Anti-aging. Well, I will say this: cosmetics and anything in that department and that market is going to make tons of money because people are constantly worrying about anti-aging and worrying about wrinkles and dimples and your eyes and your neck and flabby arms and stuff. But I'm gonna be honest, like, yes, it is a multi-million, billion, maybe even $1 trillion industry that does bring in a lot of money. But I just felt really weird that people had to spend $70 on some little cream made from like organic plants. And you know what? I don't know if it worked or not. Is it a placebo effect? Is it real? Whatever. And I was just like,
I can imagine young Finn just being like, just apply it right here and apply it right here. And see, look how my skin's already rejuvenated.
Right. But the thing is, I'm 18. At 18, you look good. That you don't have wrinkles. You don't look old. And I'm not saying that at 25 you look old either, but I'm just saying at 18, you look more like a kid still than you do if you're 25 and you have some dirt on your face. And so that was probably the wackiest job I ever had. That was like weird. I did that for like 3 months. I hated it. I invested like $400 into it and got nothing out of it. And I was like, this sucks. This sucks. I was gonna say something else, but sucks butt.
Yeah.
But it's that experience that sometimes you go through life and you're like, dang, I'm gonna hit this destination and then I don't. And I'm honestly, I don't know about you, but I'm grateful that I didn't become a pilot. And I don't know if you're grateful that it's not that you're going against being a physical therapist because they're very important people, but I'm sure you're grateful and thankful and more satisfied that you are a nurse and you followed that dream and got to that destination than you did becoming a physical therapist.
I will say that this job is way more rewarding. And because of the versatility of what I do, it's allowed me to kind of visit and see the United States, visit and see the world, as well as generate a pretty good source of living and just kind of be able to live like comfortably,
Right.
So that's just been one of those things. Like I've been super fortunate that my mom, like she was one of the main influencing factors, and my cousin Wendy, she man, without her support, I wouldn't have been able to get through it. Like she would always find ways to either stay up with me or give me some form of support. So I'm here now, and I'm really blessed with the opportunity to be here as a nurse. But I wouldn't have been able to get here without like a lot of key, motivating factors like my parents and Wendy, and yeah. So now I'm here as a travel nurse, and I get a chance to travel the United States, and I get a chance to take care of people, and I get a chance to be on a podcast with my buddy Finn. So,
yeah, man. Hey,
all good.
It's and like you said, like another thing that I would just tag on there is you sometimes you go down certain paths with a destination anticipated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're supposed to reach the destination. There are times that you have to go down a certain road to identify what it is that you want to do, what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what it is that you might be going for. Because for me personally, I did not have an interest in selling shoes. I would claim myself to be an entrepreneur. but working for somebody else, right, in that kind of industry where you're selling shoes, and it just wasn't for me in a sense. Like I realized very quickly that I did not enjoy that level of work. It's not that I don't mind working. I was very good at it. I would say I was very good at the job. It just wasn't my cup of joe. It wasn't. I genuinely felt like I was going to a place and I was basically dumping fuel on a fire. And when the fire representation is I'm selling shoes, I'm selling clothing to promote vanity. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't want, and I'm not saying everybody was vain, but there was a majority of people who literally, I had a lady tell me she bought shoes just so she could buy shoes. Hell, I don't even have enough shoes in my wardrobe to say that I have shoes
You
to go.
know, some people actually go shopping to therapeutically treat, like feel
Okay,
better.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with therapeutically buying stuff and taking care of yourself. That's
I'm
not what
just
I'm.
saying that's a very
It's
expensive hobby. That's what I agree with you.
it is very expensive, but it's just that I think my priorities for where my money would go is not in a pair of shoes every single week, right? And I'm not. I know people who have a whole entire closet full of Nikes, Adidas. Like I get it, cleats, but I just didn't find it as interesting to work in the shoe department as much as being in the emergency room and working with people. As difficult as people can be, it's
It's
just a
definitely more rewarding.
it's more rewarding because you actually have, I feel like they're coming to you for a purpose, right? Hey, I need you because I'm not doing well, I'm not feeling
Mhm.
well, I've got this going on, I'm sick, I'm not, I need your help. So anyways, it's just like I feel like at the end of the day when we look at this entire like experience of life, and I think the starting of this whole journey of this new season, the fire that we want to rekindle here is that we all have experiences. We all have a destination in mind. We have a place we want to go. We have things that we want to accomplish. There are people we're going to come across. There are going to be people who leave. I know there's like, I would say like my entire, if I have to use my, like an analogy or an example, my deck of cards or my hand that I'm handed down, right, has changed over the 5 years, maybe 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years. And you grow, right? You grow and you learn more about yourself.
Of course.
And in these moments, personally, I have come across a lot of my own personal self-growth. I have learned that during the most bottomless moments, the moments where I felt like I was hit at the rock bottom, which we talk about a lot, it gives perspective. And not every destination that we have set in mind is going to be where we're actually going. I
Of
would have
course.
never in my entire life, in the 24 years that I have been alive, would I have ever imagined myself being in healthcare. I was not going that direction. Didn't want to be in healthcare. But it's something you said a long time ago, and I'll bring it back up. You said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right, man.
So just to look back on it, where
It's,
could I be today if I would have stuck to my plan? I would have been, I could have been a pilot. I could be flying for Delta. I wouldn't be with Cassandra. I wouldn't have a dog. I would have not ran into you. Wouldn't have had the opportunity to be on a podcast. Podcasting wasn't a thing I even thought about 10 years ago. That wasn't even on my mind.
yeah,
So
of
it's
course.
like things happen along certain journeys and paths for
That's
us to be to the
yeah.
original plan that God has for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with your point on that. Like, sometimes you set out one destination, then God just says, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to reroute you. I know that you were planning for this and you were hoping for this, but I have something better. I have something like alternative that you can try." And
Yeah,
at this point, like just in life in general, I just pray that like all the opportunities that are meant for me, they present themselves. Anything else, take away. I don't want to look at it like I just want to be able to be in a position where I'm highly favored and I'm doing exactly what he wants me to do versus, what I want, you know,
exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's just like the only way to live it. And I've been blessed just because I've been able to kind of roll with the punches, be super malleable, and just kind of go from there.
That's right. With that being said, though, Adler, I think we'll kind of keep it right here with
Yeah,
today's
we're
episode.
right here.
Um, I'm excited for this season. I mean, I think really with this season we're gonna have a lot of fun with.
Do you like just real quick? Like, and I just got to mention this. Um, the whole entire episode's been talking about rerouting, and have you ever been rerouted before? We're gonna try something a little different. We're gonna have a little bit of a call to action, right? So on our Instagram, it's the Best You Nation. That's what it's called, and you can find us on the Best You Nation, and we would like for you to. We'll put a post in the story, but we'd like for you to comment and just give us a story or a time of your life where you started off in one direction and then God said, rerouting, and then sent you a whole different direction. So that's something that I definitely want to kind of like jump in on with next episode. Hopefully we can pick 1 or 2 or something like that where we can just, talk about it. But I wanted to kind of touch on that before we head out because I'm not sure exactly. Like,
no, and I appreciate that because it is important. We want to be more engaged in this, and not that we haven't been engaged in the previous seasons, but I think with this season, we're going to be able to really we want to hear from everybody else. We want to really know what it is that people are experiencing because we're all experiencing stuff. And I think the best way to do this is through our social media platform, growing our YouTube channel. And we want you guys to hear what Adler and I have to say. I think what we talk about is pivotal and has so much value, and we want you guys to be a part of that. This is all only possible because of those that are listening and supporting and sponsoring our podcast through the support and the subscriptions and everything that you guys are doing. So yes, I think it is important to mention to follow our story, follow us. It costs nothing to follow on Instagram. Just hit that follow button, get that notification when we post something, get that, motivation and inspiration through our story posts. So
I'll be honest, in the last few days, just because I've been at a wedding and plus I've had some work stuff that I had to get done. I haven't really been posted at much this week. I kind of took a break, but I will post something again starting this week, and we'll come in hot, we'll come in fresh, okay?
With that being said, guys, we love you. We thank you. Get out there, make it happen. Share your experiences with us. Tell us about your life a little bit. Get going out there and let's make this season count. Season 11. Ooh, that's crazy. Season 11. It's gonna be hot, and super excited. So with that being said, Adler, anything else?
I think that's it. Take care. We want you to be the best version of yourself. We appreciate you. We love you.